Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. A couple of significant anniversaries took place on February 11th. One created the Vatican City State, the other created a Pope Emeritus. Rome Report says more on the history of this day in the Church.
February 11th is the anniversary of the Lateran Pact. It was an agreement between Italy and the Holy See that led to the creation of Vatican City State in 1929. However, since 2013, February 11th has become famous for another reason. It was on this day when Benedict XVI convoked a meeting with the cardinals in Rome to officially announce 3 canonizations. However, he also made another unexpected announcement at 11:45 a.m.
In gravescente etate, non iam aptas esse ad monus Petrinum eque administrandum.
As the Pope withdrew to his residency, the news was reported by French e-media and Italian ANSA agencies. The Vatican's official newspaper, L'Osservatorio Romano, also published a special edition on this historic moment. At the time Benedict resigned, he was 85 years old. He was Pope for 7 years, 10 months and 10 days. He had done 25 papal trips to 24 different countries. Benedict had also canonized 44 saints, 26 of them men and 18 women, and elected 67 new cardinals.
Ho fatto questo in piena libertà, per il bene della Chiesa, dopo aver pregato a lungo ed aver esaminato davanti a Dio la mia coscienza, ben consapevole della gravità di tale atto, ma altrettanto consapevole di non essere più in grado di svolgere il ministero petrino con quella forza che esso richiede.
Non potrebbe fare quasi nulla di
He wouldn't have been able to do almost anything that is expected of a pope. He wouldn't be able to travel. He wouldn't be able to preside over public celebrations, hold long meetings, or make complex decisions. He clearly did the correct thing, the most reasonable thing in front of God and mankind.
Over the years, the initial shock to this decision has gradually calmed down and become more accepted. It was another gesture of humility, wisdom, and prudence from the now Pope Emeritus.
In news from around the country, the U.S. Supreme Court, by a vote of 5-4, recently allowed the execution of Alabama death row inmate Domineque Ray to proceed without an imam present, as Ray had requested. In response, Archbishop Joseph Kurtz, chairman of the USCCB Committee for Religious Liberty, and Bishop Frank Dwayne, chairman of the Committee on Domestic Justice and Human Development, issued a statement saying that the death penalty itself is an affront to human dignity, and Mr. Ray, they said, bore the further indignity of being refused spiritual care in his last moments of life, in violation of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Alabama law. This unjust treatment, they went on, is disturbing to people of all faiths, whether Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or otherwise. The Supreme Court had said the inmate had waited too long to object to the prison's decision. Ray, who was on death row for the 1995 rape and murder of a 15-year-old, was allowed to meet with an imam before his execution, and the religious leader watched from an adjoining room as Ray was executed by lethal injection an hour after the Supreme Court's decision, February 7th. In news from around the world, well, we had mentioned earlier that February 11th is the anniversary of the Lateran Treaty, as well as the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. However, February 11th is so much more than those two anniversaries. It is also the World Day of the Sick and the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes, both of which play a special part in the life of a French sister who was miraculously healed at Lourdes.
Bernadette Mouriot's story is a miraculous one. She is one of the most recent to be healed after visiting the Marian shrine of Our Lady of Lourdes. She tells her incredible experience in this book, My Life is a Miracle, The Last Healing of Lourdes. The life of this French sister changed completely on July 11, 2008. After 42 years with a degenerative disease and paralyzing illness, she felt she could walk again. She endured the last 14 years taking morphine daily, wearing a corset, and depending on an electrostimulation machine. She was healed completely, immediately, and inexplicably after receiving a blessing of the sick at the Shrine of Lourdes. 10 years of medical research on the healing confirmed this. Bernadette has nothing but beautiful words to speak of Lourdes.
On trouve In Lourdes, we encounter the Blessed Mother, the presence of universal fraternity, and the welcoming of the most fragile. It's a place where there's no difference between pilgrims who arrive on their own feet and the sick brought in wheelchairs. Through service to the sick, Jesus is present, and the sick offer a lot to those who care for them. I encourage young people to come to Lourdes to help the sick, because they receive much more than they can give.
Besides physically living her illness, Sister Bernadette is also a nurse. She accompanies many others on pilgrimages to shrines like Lourdes. She says there are many lessons to learn through illness.
From the sick, we learn to become small because we don't have the answer to the suffering of others. We learn patience. We learn to live the present as a gift, even though we depend on others. I continue to go to Lourdes to pray for the sick, to accompany them, not with words or speeches, but simply by being there with them and helping them.
Her healing was presented in Rome. She was accompanied by the Bishop of the Diocese of Beauvais, who officially declared the story of Sister Bernadette a miracle.
It is something that cannot be explained on a scientific level. At the same time, it means there was divine intervention, at least for us believers.
The book also includes a section with text from a medical commission and statements certifying the rapid and miraculous healing of Sister Bernadette. It is the 70th miracle recognized by the French sanctuary.
And finally in the news, the Vatican has released the schedule for Pope Francis's upcoming trip to Morocco from March 30th through the 31st. The visit will include a stop at the school training an international group of Muslim prayer leaders and preachers, including women. The Pope is also expected to visit a Caritas center assisting migrants who ended up in Morocco with hopes of eventually making it to Europe. The visit to Morocco, where 99% of the population is Muslim, will allow Pope Francis the opportunity to continue the reflections on Christian-Muslim relations that he began in Abu Dhabi in February. As he did in the United Arab Emirates, the Pope is expected to highlight the 800th anniversary of the encounter of St. Francis of Assisi and Sultan Al-Malik Al-Kamil of Egypt. Well, that is all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.